Are you training your dog for service dog work? Well, in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about recalls as it relates to public access and why you would want to even train your dog a recall if it's for public access. So stay tuned. We're going to get into all of that. But before we dive in, my name is Lisa. I'm a certified professional dog trainer, and I love helping pups and their parents live better lives together by improving their training and communication and have a better understanding of each other. With that being said, let's first talk about why you would even need a recall in the first place if you are training a service dog. The first reason is, just like for any pet dog, it's important to have a solid recall just in case your dog does slip off leash or you need to recall them away from something dangerous or something that they shouldn't be by. Another reason why you might want to teach your service dog in training how to recall is you actually might need it for a task. So when we train really complicated behaviors, like let's say you want to train your dog to go find someone for you when you are having a medical emergency, or go press like an alarm button for you that will notify or call your emergency contact, or let's just say you need your dog to go retrieve something. Those are all longer behaviors that we split into little bitty pieces. So for example, if you need your dog to retrieve your medication for you, the retrieve cue is actually a combination of multiple smaller behaviors. So step one would be going to go find the medication. Two is picking up the medication, which is a take it. And then step three is recalling them back, so coming back to you. And then the fourth step is giving the medication to you. So we teach it backwards. It's called back chaining. But without getting too much into that, just know that you would need to have your dog be really proficient at each of those little steps first before you combine them together. And finally, if you do complete a public access test, just to ensure that your dog is appropriate for work out in the public, then it's part of the test. So usually what they'll have you do is have your dog go on a sit or a down, go to the end of the leash, and then have them recall back. And that's just for emergency. Before diving into the how-to, let's first talk about what a recall actually is, because when we are planning our training, we need to actually know what is the behavior that we're looking for, what is our criteria. And so in general, I would say having your dog come to you would be your dog leaving whatever they're doing, whether that's sniffing or, visiting someone, leaving what they're doing, disengaging from that, coming back to you and sitting. And then being close enough so that you can grab their collar if they're off leash and they're not going to duck away or run away when you grab their collar. So after you've decided what your goal is, let's first decide on what we want our recall word to be. So is that going to be here, come, their dog's name, or your dog's name? But you want to make sure that the verbal cue that you use is not something that's already been unintentionally poisoned. That's what we call a poison cue. So let's say you said come to your dog and then you made them take a bath, or you had them get brushed. That would be called poisoning the cue if your dog didn't like that. And what they're going to think is, well, next time I don't want to come to you because I don't want to get brushed or I don't want to take a bath. Now, every dog is going to be different in terms of what they find reinforcing versus punishing. For example, if you're at the dog park and you say, come, my one dog, Ziggy, would be like, thank God we're leaving the dog park. But my other dog, Dodger, might be like, oh no, I don't want to leave. So one dog could find something reinforcing versus another dog might find the same thing punishing. So we just want to make sure that we are aware of what our dog's likes and dislikes are, and we're not accidentally poisoning the cue by telling them to come and then punishing them for it. So in general, I would say if you're newer to training, I wouldn't use come, because that's a word that we use in our everyday language, and you may accidentally say it when it's bath time or time to get groomed or time to take their medicine, things like that. So you may want to use something like here, because typically we don't use that in a sentence. Now, I should mention though that I personally do use the verbal cue come, because I know not to accidentally punish my dog, but I'm always thinking about, you know, when I do this, is it going to be reinforcing? Is it going to be punishing? And it's also my job, so it's a little bit different. I think if I wasn't a trainer, I would probably accidentally use that. I would probably accidentally use that verbal cue when it's time to take a bath or whatnot. So you know yourself best, so pick a word that works for you. And then as a second step, we're going to choose an emergency recall word. This is going to be in case of an emergency. It's a very special word that you don't use a lot, and you're going to pair it with something really, really special so that they start to associate that word with just like something amazing. So if you really need them to get away, like let's say somehow they slip out of the harness and then a kid runs and then they chase them, I don't know. You know, our dogs shouldn't be doing that, but you can never know exactly what your dog is going to do in all different cases, right? Like my dog Ziggy, you know, someone left a dirty diaper at the park and I was trying to get a cute picture of him running, and he made a right turn towards the dirty diaper and rolled in it. Okay, so with that being said, let's talk about the steps to teach our regular recall first. So let's dive into step one of teaching a solid recall. So first, you're going to take your teeny tiny tasty treat, tuck it behind your thumb and your two fingers. The moment your dog's nose boops your fingers, the treat releases. Now, if you're using a marker word or a clicker, the moment your dog's nose boops your fingers, you're going to say yes, your verbal marker, or you're going to click for that. So here's what that looks like. To introduce recall, we are going to get that magical treat dispenser. So I tuck the treat behind my index fingers and thumb, and I am just going to put it right in front of my dog's nose because we know that distance makes something harder or easier. So I'm going to bring it really close. Yes! I give him the treat. The moment his nose boops my fingers, I'm going to mark that with a yes and then provide the treat. Okay, step two is to slowly, incrementally make it harder and harder. So we know that distance, duration, distraction, the 3 Ds make a behavior harder or easier. We're gonna start with distance first. So you're gonna slowly start to create more distance away from your dog. Now I'm gonna start to add a little bit more distance. So, yes. Yes. Once my dog is doing the behavior regularly, then I can add in the verbal cue, which is come, and I can start to fade out that treat. So I'm still going to use this hand as like a target point, and I'm going to pretend like I'm holding the treat, but I'm not actually putting the treat in my hand. So. Yes, good boy. Good boy. I forgot to mention, so we're not adding in the verbal cue yet because when your dog doesn't know what something means, they're not going to even notice you saying the verbal cue. So we want our dog to understand the behavior and what is expected of them first, and then we will add in the verbal cue. So let me grab a treat. Or actually, we're not using a treat, so. Okay. So I'm going to, yes, good boy, good boy. Yes, boy. Okay. So another criteria of our recall is we want to make sure that we can grab our dog's collar without them running away. The issue is that most of the time when we grab a dog's collar, it's because we need them to do something. It's like, come to this room, or I need you to leave this room, or I need you to come in from the yard. It's too cold, I need to close the door. Or I need you to leave right now, this play date with another dog. So our dogs typically will have a negative association with collar grabs. So we want to make sure that we are countering that with a lot of positive experiences so that they are excited to get their collar grabbed. And that way, when you do need to do something that's maybe perceived by them as something negative, you've built up a ton of reinforcement history, a lot of positive experiences with it to help kind of soften that one negative experience. And as long as Most of the experiences are positive. You don't have to worry about one maybe experience where you have to pull them away from a dead rabbit or a dead bird or something like that. So to create a positive experience, instead the collar grab, I'm gonna first start really slow. So I'm gonna, yes. And there's no verbal cue for this because I'm just trying to get him to have a good association with his collar being grabbed. And if he was really scared, I might even just start with this versus grabbing the collar. But since I've worked on this with him already, he enjoys it. But some dogs will duck away. So in that case, you just want to start with like this, right? Now let's start to add in distraction. So we're gonna split our distractions into smaller pieces so that they're easier. For example, rather than starting with, you know, your dog being surrounded by 20 other dogs and then having them recall, you can first start with the sound of a dog barking playing on YouTube or playing on Spotify. There are lots of Spotify sounds, so whatever your distraction is, pick that distraction, and then you're gonna play at a low volume and incrementally increase that volume. So when we start playing a sound, we wanna start at a very low volume. Since the Dodger has done this before, and I wanna make sure that you guys can hear it, because if I play it at a low volume, you'll be able to hear it. I'm gonna turn it up higher, but if a dog is like brand new at this, I would wanna put it at the lowest possible volume. And of course, normally I might have a second person play this from further away and then have him recall to me away from that sound, but it's just me right now. Yes, good boy. For Dodger though, I know that one of his biggest distractions is, I don't know if you could tell, is food. So I can also use recall in kind of like the same way as a leave it would work. But if it's further away or, you know, if someone dropped food from further away, I can recall him away from it as well. So that's like another option. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to place him in a down and then put my treat up. Put my treat over here and then fold over my treat. Okay, come on. So that he kind of wants it. Okay, this is not working because he is just focused on my treat. So let's figure out something. You know what? I'm gonna do this. Okay, so I'm gonna place this treat bag as a distraction. And then I'm gonna mark and reward once he disengages from it. Yes, good boy. Wow, that's a very good boy. Another way you can make it harder is if you know of a dog that is behind a fence always, because in every neighborhood there usually is at least one, you can create distance away from that fence and then have your dog recall away from it. Most likely you don't have to go all the way up to the fence. You can be several feet away across the street and your dog will probably already notice it, so don't feel like you have to be really close. You can always use a dog park as well as practice. And I don't mean going in the dog park, but I mean standing outside of the dog park from a distance. All those dogs are fenced in and you can ask your dog to recall away from that dog park. Like I said, you're not in the dog park. You are just having your dog see the dogs in the dog park and recalling them away. This will apply to any distraction. So, you know, whether it's the mailman, you can first have your dog recall away from the sound of the mail coming in or the Amazon truck backing up. Whatever it is, you can work on that. And if you need more help with splitting criteria or building out a training plan, I recommend you join my free service dog training community. I've included a link below and I have some free courses in there as well. Now, the last step is generalizing. So we want to make sure that our dogs know how to do this no matter where they are, whether that's inside, outside, in a store. So you want to randomly practice it throughout the day. Anytime you notice your dog getting distracted by anything, it doesn't matter if you don't think it's a big distraction. For example, if a dog is distracted by a pile of snow, they might think it looks like a bunny or something. I know so many people that are like, oh yeah, he's fine with snow, he doesn't care. but it's like, no, that specific snow looks like a bunny, so your dog is distracted by it. And so that would be a good opportunity. So look for those opportunities where your dog is focused on something, even if it's not something you think they are extremely distracted by. Like, let's say your dog doesn't care that much about people, but maybe they seem hyper-focused on a specific person and they're not pulling or barking or anything like that, but they're just looking at him. That's a good practice opportunity, because all of that is muscle memory to be able to engage with something visually or just by listening to it, and then being able to pull themselves away and disengage and look towards you is going to be a skill. Okay, so last, let's talk about emergency recalls. So like I said, you should have already picked out your emergency recall word already. I'm gonna use the word popcorn, and we are going to pair that with something really, really great. It could be, you know, whipped cream or something they don't normally get. It could be a treat party. If your dog is on a diet, you can just break up treats really small and be like, oh my God, lots of praise. So whatever it is, this is going to be your emergency recall word. You are only using it with something really crazy positive, right? Like amazing. And it's gonna make sure that they come no matter what. I'm gonna use the word popcorn for this emergency recall word. But like I said, it's an emergency recall word, so you're using it in an emergency, but you do want to build up that reinforcement history that's amazing for it. If you think of reinforcement history like a jar of marbles, the more you build up that reinforcement history, the better, because when you have to, you know, take a bunch of marbles out of that jar, let's say your dog is sniffing a dead bird that's super high value, and you recall them away, put them on leash, that is punishing, but you're also gonna still give them a treat to kind of soften the blow a little bit, and you've built up this much savings in your jar of marbles, right? So you have this really big reinforcement history, so your dog can afford to take a little bit out of that reinforcement history. So the word I'm going to use is the word popcorn, and if you're embarrassed to say it, just pick a name that sounds like a dog's name, right? Because if you yell popcorn, they'll just think that your dog's name is popcorn. Anyway, you're gonna say popcorn and pair it with something amazing. You're gonna do this randomly throughout the day and always make it something absolutely amazing so your dog has that really solid reinforcement history with that. All right, so that's it for today, everyone. As mentioned, if you want to get more into service dog training and you wanna learn more about what the next steps are for you and your dog, be sure to join my community. It's free, I've linked to it below. And like I said, I have free courses in there as well as courses that you can unlock by engaging with the community. If you'd like more useful content like this, be sure to provide me with some reinforcement by giving me a thumbs up. It helps out my channel a lot. And be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to get notifications when I post a new video. All right, that's it for today, everyone. And with that being said, I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.